Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Introduction to Social Welfare Policy webinar. My name is Taylor Lee. I'm the I am the liaison to the School of Public Policy and Administration, and I am joined by Amanda Solomon today. She's my co-presenter, and she's the liaison to Human Services and Social Work.
Hi, everyone.
So our objectives today are threefold. It's really just this session is meant to introduce you to the library and how the library's resources can be useful to you in terms of social welfare policy research. So we're going to begin by defining social welfare policy and how it and its implications for your own research. And it just so happens that Walden's mission statement very closely aligns with the concept of social welfare policy. So Walden's mission statement is to create scholar practitioners and to equip them to effect positive social change. So that's really what the whole business of social welfare is about. So it's very relevant to Walden's mission. Next, we're going to learn how to explore social welfare policy using library resources. We're going to look in some databases. Amanda and I have also created this guide that I have linked here in the presentation. And really everything that we talk about today is located in this guide. So you might want to open that in a separate tab and bookmark that for use at a later date. And then finally, we are going to learn how to continue researching social welfare policy using things outside of our own collections. So things like government websites and think tanks. And we'll conclude today by just pointing out some other helpful library resources and how you can get in touch if you have any questions. Okay, so Amanda, did you want to talk about definitions?
Sure. Well, Taylor has the definition for law, and a lot of these social welfare policies are public law. And some of these include things like healthcare. You may be thinking of the recent Affordable Care Act or empowerment. Public housing and other programs, but all these programs are geared toward assisting the poor and unemployed and the marginalized in society. So getting back to that positive change that Taylor just spoke about. So I included a couple examples here. So one public social welfare policy, the Adoption and Safe Families Act. You can see it's abbreviated ASFA with a public law number. Again, you'll see something like that referred to in a legal terms. And then we have Older Americans Act, which was just revised recently. But these are examples of social welfare policies that we're using still today.
Great. And subject areas. So
basically, most of your social welfare policies fall under these broad subject umbrellas. So when you're thinking about your research interest in social policy, you're going to kind of look at these broad overarching subject areas, whether it's your community, you're looking at race, class, and gender, or systems of care like child welfare or older Americans. It's pretty much going to fall under these categories. All right, so when you are doing social welfare policy research, you're likely going to use a lot of different information sources because policy research is informed by other types of information. And it's informed by things like government agencies and government reports, statistics, also by policy and advocacy groups, also known as think tanks. They write reports on policy, and also the media, public opinion, newspapers, public debates. All of these things kind of complex circle involve social policy research. So your policy research is also going to be informed by other types of information, and including whether you're doing research on a policy that's either state, federal, or local level. But keep in mind that policy research is not done in a straight line. You're going to explore lots of different information sources.
Okay, so when you're just getting started with your research on social welfare policy, you're likely going to want to do some searches for just general background information on broad topics. And there are a few places that are good to do that. The first that I have listed here are CRS reports. These are Congressional Research Service reports. And essentially what the Congressional Research Service is a think tank that produces very detailed reference-like information for Congress as they ponder, a certain issue. So all of these Congressional Research Service reports are available online. They'll be available through some of the government websites we see later on in the presentation, but they they're an authoritative source for background information, and they're going to provide a lot of detail. Another place you might consider going is Thoreau, and that is our multi-database search tool. And I'm going to hop over here to the library's website to show you where Thoreau is. So there's two ways you can access Thoreau. You can access it here in our databases A to Z list. This is our list. This is our comprehensive list of all of our databases. But you can also search in Thoreau by just using this main search bar at the top of our website. You can see above this, there's two options for Thoreau and then search everything. You want to leave this to set to Thoreau, and you can search for something like social welfare, for example. And when you search for really broad topics like this, a lot of times what you're going to see in your results is, before you even get to result number one, you'll see these things called research starters. And this is going to give you some of that reference type information, background information on a particular issue. So this is similar to what you would find in an encyclopedia. Now, once you're in Thoreau, you also have the option to explore all different kinds of resources. So when you do a search in Thoreau, not only are you going to get these research starters, you're going to get research articles, and you can limit to peer review if that's what you're interested in. You're going to get books in these lists of results, and you can limit to those over here. You're going to get encyclopedias, so all kinds of different resource types. And then the other two resources that I have here, one is Sage Knowledge, and that is another one of our databases. And that is particularly good for this kind of background information because it has a lot of handbooks and encyclopedias. So another good place to look. And then finally, Wikipedia. So Wikipedia, I've included Wikipedia here with a caveat. Wikipedia is a very useful source for background information. However, as most of you probably know, it is not an authoritative source whatsoever. It's good to use to get leads, but aside from that, you're not going to want to cite Wikipedia in your research because it is not an authoritative source. The most helpful part of Wikipedia in the context of social welfare policy is, or any type of policy actually, is the fact that it will provide citations for the individual policies that it mentions in a particular entry in its list of references at the bottom of the page. So you can actually use those references will be hyperlinked, and you can use Wikipedia then to track down a citation, which you can then take to a more authoritative source of information like Nexus Uni, which is one of the databases we'll be seeing, or a government website. So Wikipedia, helpful, but again, not appropriate to include in your research. Okay, let's see. Okay, just a few notes here. And Amanda, I think I'm hearing an echo. You might want to mute yourself when I'm.
Okay,
yeah,
sorry about
that. There we go. So just wanted to note a few things about looking for policy in general. And the first thing being, you're going to see a lot of different terms associated with policy. So it would be really nice if everything that was a policy was called a policy, but that's just not how it works. There's all kinds of different terms. Very rarely will you even see the word law. When you're talking about policy and law, you're really going to be seeing the terms statutes, regulations, and court opinions. Those are the three big ones, especially at the federal level. But you'll also see terms like bills, public laws, and private laws. So I just included this slide in case you ever encountered some legal terminology that you weren't familiar with. This slide is just meant to show you where these things are published. So again, this is at the federal level. It will differ slightly based on if you're looking at state level resources, but statutes, which are those pieces of policy enacted by a legislative body, those are going to, once it passes through Congress and becomes law, it will eventually be added to the US Code. Now, the US Code is only updated once every 6 years. So if something were to be signed into law today, it would have to wait, I believe it was last updated in 2016, so all the way until 2022 to be added to the code. So until that time, it is a public law. So it still carries the weight of law, but it's not technically a part of the US Code yet. But that's where statutes are going to be published. Regulations, which are the policies that executive bodies enforce, those are going to be housed in the Code of Federal Regulations, or the CFR. And then finally, policies that emerge out of a courtroom are going to be called case law or court opinions, and they are published in US court opinions. Okay, so where do we look for legal materials or policy materials? Legal databases are going to be one place. Two legal databases that we have are LegalTrack and Nexus Uni, which we'll see in a moment. The benefit to Nexus Uni is that you can access both the official policies and secondary information, secondary sources like law reviews and news articles in one place. And then other relevant databases that we have in our collection are Political Science Complete, SocIndex, Sage Stats, and ICPSR. The last two are specifically or particularly helpful for stats. And then Google Scholar does have a case law search that not many, I don't know, not many people seem to know about, but just keep that in mind. You can switch, you can toggle between articles and case law under the main search bar on Google Scholar. And then this slide just lists out various government websites where you can track down policy. We'll be using, we'll only see one today, which is FedSys. And then at the bottom there, if you're looking for state level policies, the website openstates.org is a really good resource for that. Okay, so how do we go about searching for policy materials or legal materials? There's three main ways. So the first is by citation. A lot of times people don't have the citation, and that's fine, especially if you're just beginning your research. If you're just browsing, you're not going to have a citation for a particular policy. But if you do, so say for example, you were reading a Wikipedia article about adoption policy, and it gave you a reference. It's going to give you that reference in citation format. So you could then take that and look in these databases and government websites. So that's one way. Another way is going to be by common name or by popular name. So for example, the Freedom of Information Act. And then finally, you can just browse generally by topic. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to hop back over to my web browser, and I want to talk to you. I think I already mentioned this. Okay, so we'll go straight to Nexus Uni, and I'm going to do. Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda. We were going to go do the Social Index for search first.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. Let's go into.
I'm going to give you control here.
Okay, great. So I'm going to show my screen. All right, hopefully everybody can see that. You got it, Taylor?
Sorry, right. Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so a good place to explore your social welfare topic is in one of our library databases. And a good starting point is the database SOCI Index, which is a very comprehensive social work and sociology database. And the way we get to that is just from the library's homepage, just click on select the subject and scroll down to social work. And what comes up is a social work research guide. Now, this is something that I created, and it's kind of a one-stop shopping place for databases in the social work field, selected journals, and lots of other useful information here. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and go straight into the social work database SOCI Index and just click on databases, scroll down. So SOCI Index full text. All right, so you get your basic EBSCOhost search screen, and what I'm going to do right away is one great thing about SOCI Index and EBSCO databases. Right up top where it says choose databases, you can choose to add a few more databases to your search, so you can search more than one at a time, which is a real benefit here in social welfare research, because we can also choose a political science database such as Political Science Complete, to add to our search. So we're covering sociology and social work and social welfare, but we're also want to look into some of the political science aspects and the legal aspects and the policy. So it's great to add that Political Science Complete database. I'm not going to go and add too much more, just that one, and we'll do a combined search. So right now we're searching SOCI Index and Political Science Complete. So one thing that I've been interested in is public housing. So this is a social welfare topic. And let's add another keyword. Let's put urban development. And I'm going to just uncheck the full text box and just do a basic search. Again, starting broad with your topic is really your best bet, at least in the beginning stages of your research. Now, the first thing I do before I even start reading my results is I start limiting, because I really want research articles at this point. So using the databases, SOCI Index, Political Science Complete, where we really want the nice peer-reviewed scholarly journal articles. So I'm going to make sure I click that box right away. The second thing I want to do, and just kind of get used to doing this, train to do it so it's very natural. You click the peer-reviewed box, and then you also change your dates. I'm going to switch my dates from 2013 to 2018, just because I want the current literature. I really don't want any outdated articles. Now I'm going to update my search. So this is actually a really good search. I have 83 results. Everything is looking relevant. Now, the good thing when you get a list of results, I may not know of any policies related to public housing and urban development because I'm just in my exploratory stage of research. But one good thing to do is start looking at the subject headings underneath your title and authors to get an idea of what they're talking about. You don't have to read the abstract really just yet if you can see what the article is discussing from the subject headings. So I'm just going to scroll down and look at my subjects a little bit. And what I'm seeing now is entry number 6 is actually referring to an actual policy called Hope 6. Now, Hope 6 is a social welfare policy that is aimed at revitalizing some of the worst public housing in the nation through a series of grant programs. But I don't really know anything about it. So I'm wondering, maybe this is a policy that I'm actually going to write about or I'm interested in. You can click on the title of this article and you get a lot more detailed information, some more subject terms, which is always great. But it also links me to Hope 6 program, and I can find all the articles in these databases that really deal with Hope 6. So this is a good way to find just articles that are dealing with this particular policy. So following those steps, browsing your subject headings, clicking on the detailed record, and then finding policy. So you may not know what policy you're interested in at first, but doing the broad searches and it leads you to a particular policy. And then from there, you can take that and explore some legal databases that Taylor's going to talk about.
Indeed, I am. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so I am on the Nexus Uni homepage now. Nexus Uni is a database for legal and business information. It contains all 3 kinds of policies, statutory, regulatory, and case law, as well as those secondary sources that I referred to earlier, law reviews, law journals, case notes and briefs, as well as news articles. So there are lots and lots of different ways that you can search in Nexus Uni. I do another webinar on legal research that goes into more detail about all of the various ways to search in Nexus Uni. But for today's demonstration, we'll just see how to do a basic search. So as you can see, there's this big search bar at the top of Nexus Uni, and you can really type in anything you want to in here, whether it be natural language, like how you would search in Google or something like that, or Boolean operators. So the search feature is much more intuitive than many other scholarly databases might be, like the one we were just in, SocialIndex. And you can see over here, we have this drop-down menu where we can tell it exactly where we want it to search and how we want it to search. So you have this ability. We're just going to leave this set to all Nexus Uni for now. And this is a really useful way to search because it's going to give you a variety of information related to a particular issue. So again, you can search in a lot of different ways. You can search by citation, you can search by the name of an actual policy, or you can search by a general topic. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to type in adoption. And you can see, as it takes us away, you can see that it suggests certain documents to us even before we search. And we'll see that again in a moment. So I'm not quite sure why, to be honest, but the default page that it shows you for any search that you do in that main search bar, it's going to default to the news articles. And you see it gives you over 10,000 of these for adoption. However, you can change what you're seeing using these different resource types along the left-hand side. So you can change to cases if you were specifically interested in case law, statutes and legislation, law reviews and journals, codes and regulations down here, among other things. So you have a lot of options here. So I'm going to go to statutes and legislation. And then I'm going to keep scrolling down, and I'm looking on the left-hand side. I'm going to specify a jurisdiction, as some of you might want to do. I'm gonna say I want to see these statutes as they exist in Maine. Okay, so this is what your results are going to look like. You can kind of look below the title of each one and see exactly where you are. We're in codes in Maine. You can view tables of contents for a lot of these documents because they are quite lengthy. If we click on one, we go into the detailed citation, the detailed record, that is, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things. The first thing is this big copy citation button. If you click this, it's going to give you the citation right down here, and that's very easy to copy and paste. Legal citations can be pretty confusing, so this is a nice tool to know about. And then also, if you look down here, it's going to give you the various hyperlinked parts of the main code. So you can sort of navigate that way as well. Another nice feature is up here, this search document box. So if you're looking for a particular aspect of adoption policy in Maine, you could enter that up here, and that's going to search within this very long, dense document for that term. As you can see, it does highlight the term that we originally searched for already, so you can use that as well. And then finally, the last thing, this drop-down menu for go to, you click this, and you can go to different parts of the document. And one area you might want to go to is research references and practice. That's going to take you to the very end, and it's going to tell you all of the different references for this piece of legislation. So that might be helpful to you as well as you continue to follow leads. Okay, let me just go back here. And when I do go back, one thing you'll notice is that you see this eyeglasses icon over here. This tells you that you have viewed this document, which is helpful because these names that they give you in citation format, it can be hard to remember which ones you've seen and which ones you haven't. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna actually go all the way back here to the search page. Let's go back here. And I'm gonna type adoption in again, and I just want to show you what it does suggest before we search. So it gives you these suggested documents, and just by looking at these, you might have a pretty good idea of a particular policy you want to investigate further. So there's this one, Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. There's this court case down here. So that's good to know about. And then also there's recommendations for legal phrases. So if you're not quite sure if the term you're using is the most appropriate, you might take a look at these and consider these as well. So I'm actually going to select this first recommended document, Adoption and Safe Families Act. And this is going to take me straight to that piece of legislation. So that's a really nice feature. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually, let's see if I can pull this off. Well, I'll just describe it. You can actually type the name of that policy that we were using, the Safe Families and Adoption Act, in here and in quotation marks. So let me actually do it. In quotation marks, because that tells the database that you want to see only results for this exact phrase. And then you could search that way as well. And instead of taking you straight into the actual piece of policy, Safe Families and Adoption.
Yeah, Taylor, they're just backwards. It's the Adoption and Safe Families Act. So that's why, there you go.
Okay. So if you were to search this way, you would again be presented with that same list of results that we had initially. So now you could look in all of the pieces, all of the statutes and legislation where this act has been cited, or you could do the same thing for news articles or case law or what have you. So before we leave Nexus Uni, I just wanted to point out this help link up here. This has a lot of really good instructional content. So both this link and down here, this tips link, both of these are going to provide some really good suggestions. So if you come back and get confused about how to best search in this database, definitely explore those resources. So now I'm going to go to FedSys. And FedSys is the largest online provider of government documents. It's kind of a one-stop shop for government documents online. It covers all three branches, and it includes all three kinds of policies, statutes, regulations, and court opinions. Similar to the links I was just pointing out, these links over here on the left-hand side are going to be really helpful in instructing you on how to best use FedSys, because it is a bit different from other databases you might have encountered. So these are helpful. And then over here, you can use these links to specify a collection or a type of resource that you're interested in. So you might, for example, select, the US code down here, and then you could select a year and a title and a chapter. However, there won't be any option to use search terms if you go about your search this way. So in order to use your search terms, we're going to use this main search bar, and you can see it's kind of small in comparison to what we saw in Nexus Uni. But I'm just going to type in elderly, and I'm going to hit search. So again, as I mentioned previously, statutes are going to end up in the US code, case law ends up in US courts opinions, and regulations end up in the Code of Federal Regulations. So again, everything we're discussing right now is federal level. But if you know what kind of policy you're looking for, you can limit your results. You can see we're getting 66,000 results right now. You can limit to United States Courts opinion right here, the Federal Register, the Code of Federal Regulations, and then the United States Code is down here. But there's a lot of other options as well. So I'm gonna limit our search to the United States Code. That gives us 302 results. And I wanted to point out that you have the ability to, sort of like we saw in Nexus Uni, you can search within these results. So we're getting 300 now, and you really wanted to hone in on a particular aspect of policy regarding the elderly. You could type in another search term here and check within results, and it would search within these 302 results. You could also add terms. So I'm going to add a term older, which is a synonymous term you might consider using in this context. We're going to separate those terms with the word or, and that's one of those Boolean operators. And I'm going to search again. Now I think we're going to have to specify, going to go back and specify that we want only, yeah, we are, only things from the US code. And once we do that, we're going to be left with 695 results. And from here, you can click on one of the results to go straight into the document. Now, these are going to be very long, dense documents. This one's only 4 pages, so this one's not too bad. But some of them will be extremely long. So one trick that you might consider doing once you get to the PDF is Control Find. And that's going to bring up this search box up here. And from here, you could type in any particular term that you wanted to see highlighted in this document. Okay. Okay, let's see. What else did I want to point out? Oh, so you can also click on this more information link down here. And this is going to give you the equivalent of a detailed citation for this official government policy. You have these list of actions over here. So you can browse the US code. You can find where this is at a federal depository library. You can view it in the catalog of US government publications, among other things. Also, another option you have is to see, let's see, where did I see this? Oh yeah, if you scroll down, you can see this document in context. So this is going to give you the entirety of the code that this came from. So this is helpful for getting an idea of the different parts of the code that might be applicable. So for example, this particular part that we're searching is in chapter 89, but if we scroll up, we also see, or I'm sorry, it's in chapter 42. But if we scroll up, we also see, let's see, you know what? I think I chose a different result and it's messing me up. Yeah, I did. But the point is you can browse through these different parts of the code because other parts might be applicable to your topic as well. Okay, let me go back now. Okay, now you could also, for the sake of, we're running a little behind on time, so I won't do this, but you can also search for specific pieces of legislation. And again, you're just gonna wanna wrap those names, like for example, the Older Americans Act. You would just want to wrap that title in quotation marks so it knows you're looking for that exact phrase. Let me go back to, okay, so we only linked it there. So before I hand it back to Amanda to talk about policy and advocacy groups, I just wanted to mention a couple other databases. I mentioned these at the beginning, but Sage Stats, specifically for statistics, the database Sage Stats is going to be really helpful, as well as for secondary data, ICPSR. Both are databases that we have access to. And one last thing in terms of statistics, this is linked in the social welfare policy guide that I pointed out at the beginning, as well as other places on the library's website, but we have something called a combined statistics search. And if you use that, let me see if I can pull that up really quick. This is a good time to demonstrate how to get to our guides. So from the library's homepage, we're going to switch this search up here to search everything. This is how we get to guides and quick answers. I'm going to type in statistics. Guides are going to display over here on the left. Quick answers are in the central column here. And I'm going to go to the statistics and data guide. Again, what I'm pointing out here is also in the social welfare policy guide, but this is the statistics combined search, and you can search for anything in here and it's going to return the most relevant government websites that have statistics on this topic. So you can see all of these various results we're getting for elderly. So that's something, a good thing to know about. And again, for state level statistics or government websites, the website openstates.org is going to be really helpful. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Amanda.
All right, thanks, Taylor. That combined statistics search is so useful. All right, so just to recap, we have looked at exploring your social policy topic using encyclopedias, Wikipedia, thorough. We've looked at sociology, the social work database in conjunction with Political Science Complete, and then Taylor's shown us some of that great legal research. There's another part of doing social policy research that involves think tanks, and they're also called advocacy centers, policy groups. But think tanks, they basically create reports on social problems. Also, they write reports on existing policies and proposed policies. They're going to write about the implications, were they successful, why or why not. And so these think tanks are actually a really good place to go for some policy analysis, to look at what's being said in the public about that particular policy. One thing about think tanks is some obviously do have distinguishable political bias, and then some don't. So you really have to put on your critical thinking hat when you're doing a think tank search, when you're doing research using think tanks. But I want to show you, and this is also linked in our guide, but Harvard Kennedy School has a free Google custom search, and it searches all the think tanks based on just a keyword or phrase that you can add right here in this search box. So for instance, if we're looking for various think tanks that are writing about child welfare, we're not just sure who out there is studying and writing on child welfare, you can just type in your keywords and get a list of results. So just right off the top of my head, I am familiar with the RAND Corporation. I've heard of this, so I'm going to click there. But of course, there's so much more. I mean, I think a lot of us have heard of the Urban Institute. So some of these you'll be familiar with. But let's click on that first link. And it's going to give me a lot of information about certain policies going on right now with child welfare. So whether that is exploring something, you can also do it by categories and other subtopics, but this is just an interesting way to explore other areas of social policy, and think tanks is a big part of that. So like I said, we do have that linked on our guide, and you can go in, and as well as I have linked several other think tanks that just deal with social welfare, and those are linked as well. All right, Taylor, I'm going to throw it back to you now. Oh, there we go.
Okay. All right, thanks, Amanda. So that really concludes what we wanted to cover in today's session, but just a couple of closing notes. I've linked again here the Social Welfare Policy Guide, and then also a link here to our webinar archive. Like I said, I do a couple of other webinars specifically on those legal databases and government websites. So if you had any more questions about those, that would be a good place to look. And then I've also included links to our library skills guides, which we saw an example of, and Quick Answers, which is a really good resource to know about because it offers answers to some of the more commonly asked questions in a very succinct form. Finally, if you want to contact us to ask us a question, you can do so by clicking on the Ask a Librarian. I'm going to pop over here to show you where this is. This is the library website. Just click up here on Ask a Librarian, and when you do, you'll see the various options that you have for contacting us. You can email us, you can chat us, you can call in a question. If you are a doctoral student, you can schedule a research appointment with one of the liaison librarians to discuss any aspect of your research. So I hope this session has been helpful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And with all of that being said, I'll just say thank you, and have a wonderful day, and we'll open it up for questions in just a moment.
Yeah, thanks everybody.